guys, what's going on? I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, but welcome back to the Halftime Adjustment Podcast. I know it's been a while, but I'm going to talk about why it's been so long since I've done one of these, and it's because real life happens. For those of y'all who know me personally, I don't really put too much about what I have going on in my personal life out in the streets that way. Well, today my son, which a lot of y'all probably didn't even know I was having one, but he's a month old today. And we're recording this as of October 28th. So I've been really busy kind of going back and forth to the NICU, being that he is a preemie. So going back and forth to the NICU and also working a new job that has some pretty demanding hours, or at least the hours don't really comparable to what I like to do outside of work. But here's the fun part to everything that's happening. I now get to see exactly if I can hold where I'm trying to go in life. Like, can I continue to do this and be a great father at the same time? So that's just something I'm looking forward to. And hopefully, you know, once we get him home and get acclimated, you guys get a chance to meet him and also see him grow up. And also, since I know a lot of you all who are watching on YouTube, the video version of this, can see the sticker I'm wearing. I am in North Carolina, yes, and we did just vote today. So if you haven't exercised, to me, your constitutional right, one of the best constitutional rights we possibly have, definitely do that. Go vote. Just tell people who you want to win this thing. Don't really care who wins in the long run, because it doesn't really take much out of my pocket to put more back into them, because I'm right there in that median bracket. So it really doesn't matter too much to me whether it's more or less taken out, because it's only going to hurt me by a couple of $100. But that's beside the point. Now, to jump into the everything that we wanted to do today, I have a little bit of somber news for my Cam Newton crowd. I also am going to do another segment exclusive to the podcast called 5 Up, 5 Down, where I got 5 things trending upwards, and it's going to be NFL version, 5 teams or situations trending upward, and 5 that are trending down. So just kind of taking a look at that, but we're going to hop right into this with the first topic I have, which is the untimely demise of a certain guy named Cam Newton. Now, we saw Cam Newton's meteoric rise to the top. I mean, just a guy who came in, drafted 7-9. The Panthers couldn't really get over the hump. Then they did, made the postseason, caught that L to San Francisco, but you kind of saw that this team was on the bubble. They made their moves, and they really did a good job of trying to put the proper team around him, but they knew, okay, we have a big arm, we need speed. They got rid of Steve Smith. They got some size at receiver. And for those of y'all who are upset about that move, I actually liked it in that time period, simply because Cam does throw a high ball. I mean, at the time, he threw a high ball. So if I have a 5'8" wide receiver as my number one, and most of those routes are taking him through the middle of the field, typically a high ball thrown through the middle of the field ends in an interception. So you don't really have the comfortability knowing that, okay, I got this 6-foot target or this 6'2" target that I can throw this to. If it happens to be a little high, he can still reach up and go get it, versus this 5'8" guy who's already missing about 6 inches on the 6'2" guy. I don't necessarily see that being the case, and I knew they had to move on from Steve Smith, even though he was productive in Baltimore those 2 years after. Now, to kind of talk about Cam Newton and where I believe the decline started, I'm going to take you back in a time machine to 2018. In 2018, you look at his stats and you say, why would you say that? He almost threw for 3,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's a pretty good season. The team went 7-9 after starting 6-1. I remember it was the 6-1 Panthers against the 5-1-1 Steelers. And that hit from TJ Watt changed a little bit of everything in that. It changed that game, because that hit on his right shoulder actually led to the interception, which led to the blowout of the game. And it was just kind of that was a game we don't need to talk about because it's 2 years old. But that hit kind of changed how things operated. Now, you really couldn't tell by the numbers he was putting up, but until you get to the New Orleans game, that final New Orleans game in that same season is where the decline really started. Now, in that game, he really wasn't throwing the ball down the field. I mean, honestly, he couldn't throw the ball. It looked like even 10 yards ahead of himself. Balls were dying at like 7 yards past the line of scrimmage. Like, it was really a rough game to watch. And the craziest part is Carolina's defense was in that game up until the fourth quarter. Like, they were in the game. But you want to focus on what actually happens. It is sad. Injuries are part of the game, and some injuries are harder to get over than others. And this one seemed to be the one that really tailed along in the last couple of years of his career. So they ended that year with 6 straight losses. 6 straight losses with Cam, and then they went to I believe it was Kyle Allen that last game. So kind of seeing how that went for them, it was 6 straight losses to Cam in that starting lineup with that offense, and then the following year was 0-2. So you're talking 8 straight losses, and these weren't just petty losses. These were some sizable losses. These were big time losses. And also, this was a team that just in 2015, so you're talking a few years removed, was a championship caliber team. They got to the Super Bowl 2015. They got there. They lost, but they got there. And then the following year, I believe they didn't make the playoffs. The year after that, they did. So 2017, they were building on an 11-5 season. They were right there fighting with the Saints. Even though they lost to the Saints in the wild card, they were fighting with them the entire season to see who was going to be kings of the NFC South. Now, it just so happened to be that the Saints just had a little bit more in the tank, had a little bit more juice going, and also just were not as hurt. So they were able to take off and really take things under control. Now, that was 2018 and 2019. So after the 2019 season, they had a decision to make. What do we do with Cam Newton? Do we bring him back? Do we try to rally it over? Well, if you're Carolina and you just jumped all this money into your running game, into a smaller back, which I love Christian McCaffrey, everything he does for Carolina. Awesome year last year in 2019. But how much of that was really him being one of the better backs in the league, or them just constantly going to the well every single time? So you really do have to factor that in. I mean, keep this in mind, just to take it and equate it to something. Look at a guy like Michael Beasley in the NBA. At certain points, he was the team's best player. You go to his times in Minnesota where he was scoring 20, 24 points a game, but he was doing it on a team that could not win. So it was easy to overestimate how important a player is when he's putting up numbers, but he's doing it on a team that doesn't yield any successes. So it's good to be a big fish in it's easy. I'm sorry, not good, but easy to be a big fish in a small pond. But when that pond is next to the Great Lakes, it's really easy to then have to compare, okay, you may have all of these accolades, all these stats, all these numbers, but if it doesn't equate to anything, then it's really not worth what you may believe it is. Now, maybe he'll still continue to prove me wrong. I still believe he's a good back. I just don't want to put that kind of money into a running back, and not just any running back, but a smaller back who now is hurt. He's coming back this week or next week. I probably don't think he'll play Thursday, but he more than likely is going to play the week after. So it's a good chance that we see him back. But what kind of C-Mac are we going to see? That remains to be the question. Now, getting back to Cam Newton, the team had to make a decision. And they were like, okay, do we bring him back? What do we do? And if we bring him back, what can we expect? So Carolina said, instead of bringing him back and wondering what we're going to get, let's cut bait. Now, granted, the way they did it was dirty. I'm not here to debate that part, though. What they did was dirty. But how they went about it, I can completely get it. I get why they did it. Like, a lot of fans get caught up on what happened with Cam, but you got to understand that Carolina needed to make a move. They're like, okay, if we commit to Cam Newton, who is at this point, I believe, 31 years old, you have to know what you have going forward. They didn't have the right pieces to win with him at that point, because if they did, they would have just brought him back, rehabbed him, and kept it rolling. But they didn't have that. So with this being the case, what they actually have going forward here, with Teddy Two Gloves and every other piece that they have an offense that they know can not necessarily blow you out of the water, but if they get consistency, they can really begin to push the envelope. And that I like. I like to see that kind of a thing out of an offense, and that's what they were beginning to do. If you go back to just Sunday when they were playing against the Saints, They had the Saints on the rope the entire time, and you cannot hang that loss to the Saints on either the offense or the defense. It just so happens the Saints have the better personnel for right now. But I believe going forward, this division, after you're looking at Breeze going and after you look at Brady going, it's going to belong to the Carolina Panthers because the way that they drafted was extremely smart. They drafted nothing but defense because they knew that's where they needed the most help. They already picked up Robbie Anderson. Okay, that gives them another big target to go along with Curtis Samuels. So they got guys in places they need to have. They had C-Mac. They were trying to build that O-line, which I still believe that first pick should have went there. But they still doing decent enough with Teddy Two Gloves and what they got going on there. So I believe Carolina knew they needed to make a move because I believe you have Cam Newton with this team. This team is more than likely 1-6 and not 3-4. That's how sharp the decline has been for Cam Newton. And I already know a lot of Carolina fans are going to be extremely pissed with me here. But check me out. I'm going to tell you this. His record overall, okay? Record overall for his entire career, every snap he's taken minus postseason. So every game he was a starter in, he is 70, 58, and 1. Solid. That is a solid NFL career. There are 500 quarterbacks who are in the Hall of Fame. But that's mainly because they've won Super Bowls and other things, or they were transformative into the game and their numbers really showed it out. Now, to look at Cam, like I said, 70, 58, and 1. That's solid. That is very, very solid. Here's where the decline starts. The last 13 losses on his record came in the last 3 years. So when you and keep in mind, he only played in the last 3 years. Okay? In the last 3 years, Cam played, let's see, it was 15 in 2018, 2 in 2019, and if I'm not mistaken, 5 so far this year. So let's do that math. I'm gonna have my pen. Let's do that math. So that's 15, 5, and 2. Okay, so 5 and 5 make 10, 2 make 12. So that's 2, carry the 1. So that's 22. That's 22 games. So that means right now, over the last 3 seasons, this man is 9 and 13. Okay? 9 and 13. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that he was gonna be this transformative back, and I understand that people are like, but you gotta look at the pieces around him. He doesn't really have the targets. Guess who else has crap targets on a consistent basis? A guy like Aaron Rodgers has had terrible targets pretty much his entire career. He made guys that good. Take a look at a guy like Jordy Nelson. He's been serviceable at best after he's left Green Bay. Right now, I think Devontae Adams is a great wide receiver for what he's been used for in Green Bay. But I'm telling you right now, there's a reason why he's not a #1 pick. He wasn't a first-round pick. Actually, I don't believe they even wasted a first-round draft pick on a wide receiver. In my recent memory, I don't remember the last time they spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver in Green Bay. But yet, for some reason, Aaron Rodgers can get out there and post the same kind of career numbers that he's always gotten used to posting. So I don't really want to hear anything about personnel and this and that, because right now, he has the same team that Tom Brady had the year before. Brady took this team to the playoffs and a division title. Right now, this team, if I'm not mistaken, is second to last, in their division at 2-4. The only team that's worse than them is the woeful Jets. Now, that's saying a lot. Right now, record-wise, in the AFC, there are 4 teams. 4 teams that are worse than they are. 4. By record. And then you say, well, you can't put us all on Cam. They're not doing well. They're not playing well. There's some things that are missing. I can lay this at the quarterback's feet. Any other team that's underperforming, typically you lay that at the quarterback's feet. That's exactly where that lays. Only team I cannot say where I'll lay how bad they played at the quarterback's feet were the Dallas Cowboys, because now you can see exactly how important a good quarterback is. Thank you, Dak Prescott, for proving everybody that you are going to be worth every red cent that you take the Cowboys for. But that's beside the point. This one here, with Cam Newton, this year, okay? 2 touchdowns passing, 7 interceptions. A 2 to 7 interception. That's a terrible ratio. That's a terrible ratio. And he played so poorly last week. I mean, 9 of 16, you're thinking, okay, well, that's not a bad start for a half, maybe a quarter. That was basically what he did. But here's the problem. 3 interceptions. That was out of the, and I want people to understand how crazy of a number this is. Out of the 7 passes that were not completed to your teammates, 3 of them came back. So nearly half the passes you threw that weren't caught by your team were caught by the other. That is a crazy way to look at that stat, but that's the way you need to look at it. Imagine if you're the coach of a team, right? You're on the sideline, and in fact, I'm going to put this in basketball terms and football terms for you, okay? So football terms, we kind of get it. You're on the sideline, you're looking, and the coach is like, oh my God. And you're the coach, okay? You're like, oh my God, take a look at this. Look at this. This guy right now, Cam Newton, he's out there, he's throwing the ball, okay, completion, interception, oh God. Okay, that's the first 3 passes. Okay, we'll build off that. We'll come back. We'll do better. Next drive, pick. You're like, okay, this is not going well. Then he's kind of get it going a little bit, completes a few more passes, and then throw some incomplete passes in there. And you're like, okay, well, now that's par for the course. And then, boom, 3rd pick. You're like, okay, something's got to change here. Because as crazy as it was going, by the time he threw that 2nd pick, they were not out of the game. By the time the 3rd one happened, just throw your hands in the air, it's over. Now, I'm looking at this a little bit differently in the basketball sense, okay? Imagine you have a starting point guard, highly touted, had a wonderful career, even won an MVP award. Okay, so let's just say this guy's name is Derrick Rose, okay? And let's say, just for example, not saying he ever did this, okay? But say, for example, he goes out onto the floor, starting, and gets like 2 assists. Team's starting to do a little bit, but they're losing in the moment. But the team's in the game. And then out of nowhere, he just throws a pass right past another teammate of his, and then boom, ball goes out of bounds, turnover. You're like, all right, man, look, hey, I don't know what you were doing with that, but hey, you've been playing pretty well. Let's keep that going. And then right down the court again, just ball goes off his foot. You're like, okay, you know what? Mistakes happen. That's cool. And then right after that, brings the ball to the court, gets trapped, ball stolen, layup the other way. At this point, are you still thinking about what he accomplished before? Or are you going to focus on what's happening in the moment? And that's where I think a lot of people are blind to what's happening with Cam Newton. They are blinded by the fact that he had the Superman pose and he did all this other stuff. And like, man, look what he did with the Carolina Panthers. That is a beautiful thing. But that's not what's happening in the moment. We cannot be prisoners of what happened in the past, because when you do things like that, you wind up giving guys money, like i.e., and I know I'm probably going to get roasted for this, a Kobe Bryant. When they gave him that terrible 2-year deal, I know why they did it. He was the LA Lakers. When I think LA Lakers, I think Kobe, Shaq, then Magic. That's, granted, I'm 32. That's more than likely how I'm going to look at it. But that's how I look at it. So when I saw those last years, I'm like, man, you don't remember anything that happened in Kobe's last 2 years except for that last game. His last game, everyone remembers it. Oh, man, Kobe dropped 60. You know what that was? That was the game Cam had against the Seattle Seahawks. Everyone's like, oh, he can still play. Look at how he did it against I don't care. I could go out there and throw for 350 against that defense. They have yet to put together a complete game against any quarterback all season long. So anyone can go out there and look impressive. Anyone can go out there and look impressive against that secondary. That secondary has more holes in it than Swiss cheese, more holes in it than old draws. It's just that bad. So, and I'm going to end with this. I loved what I saw out of Cam over the 10 years he was in the NFL so far. Loved it. But he knew going into this year, he was playing for his career. And honestly, it doesn't look like it's going to be ending well. This contract may be one of many that he has to take just to be someone's backup. Now, maybe something happens, he gets his career resurrected, and then boom, he just pops. Maybe he pops in the second half of the year. I would love to see that. But these numbers and how things are shaping out, they're not really holding true to me right now. I don't know exactly how anyone can believe that he can turn it around after such an abysmal start. But guys, on the second part coming up, I'm going to sit here and tell you guys my 5 up, my 5 down, who's trending up, who's trending down. This is Jay the Reporter, and I'll see you all on the other side.